No. Hi guys, this is Abhinav and welcome to MTAG TV. Tonight we are previewing the Royal Challengers Bangalore in our 8-part preview towards the IPL. Joining me tonight are three very special guests. We've got Jack Hope from the Cricket Podcast, we've got Yasir Rizvi from the Cricket Vidya Podcast, and we've got Rahul Warrior joining us tonight, and which for what should be a very interesting discussion today on a side that generally gives us a lot of discussion points. So Jack, I'll straight away come to you. RCB had a great start to their campaign in the first half. They were doing everything right. Somehow they tried to ensure that they don't qualify in the second half. Yet they managed to qualify and promptly got knocked off by the first eliminator. Coming into this season, what do you think about this RCB team, and what kind of a vibe is it giving you?
Right. So I think that their team this year might actually be, on paper, slightly better than last year. I think their first 11 is one of the best 2 or 3 starting 11s in the IPL. The problem is, as you sort of alluded to, is that the RCB factor is still at large. There's definitely the possibility that they'll make some bad decisions and mess things up for themselves. Or I think more likely, I think there's the possibility that one injury or 2 injuries to key Indian players leaves them short, because I'm not sure that their backup players are quite as good as the frontline 11. I mean, look at Devdutt Padikkal, already gone down with COVID. At the moment, right now, I'm questioning who's going to be the backup opener. And that's a big problem the day before or 2 days before the tournament.
Absolutely. I think so. Yasir, I'll come to you now. RCB coming into 2021, what is it? What are the feelings that you're getting from this side now?
Okay, so the way they have gone about the mini auction tells you about that thought process a little. So it gives you a glimpse. For instance, I think 2 areas that RCB needed to work on was death bowling, which has been a perennial issue with the team, and also the middle order, middle overs batting, which I think the run rate last year was one of the lowest. So they have tried to address that, and in trying to address that, they have used a lot of their resources, and then they were again left with not many funds to get the other players in. So while to some extent they have addressed their middle order issues, their death bowling, I think this year is even more vulnerable than what it was last year, with no Morris not being there, and ultimately I think that is what is going to spell trouble for them, because see, Maxwell is an enigma, and in finance, I mean in financial terms, we use the term high beta stock, which is a very volatile stock, right? It may give you very high returns, but it can give you the negative returns as well. So Maxwell can be something like that, and you can't base your strategy on him.
Absolutely. Rahul, 2021, what do you think about this RCB? What's the do you get the sense of optimism from this RCB team, or are you living in some sort of a fear now with this side?
Okay, see, I mean, I'm always living in fear as an RCB fan. So, but if we had Morris, I would feel more confident. And letting Morris go means that, our death bowling is back to square one. I don't think RCB have had a reliable death bowler since Mitchell Starc in 2015, who was someone who could be banked upon every game to, basically bail RCB out. And since he left, we've not really had anybody. Even though they've gone through a whole bunch of players, Chris Jordan, Tamal Mills, Tim Southey. There's a long list of overseas pacers who haven't done the job. So if we had Morris, I would feel more confident. But if you look at on paper, like Jack said, team does look good, but the thing is on paper, and the death bowling is the one main concern. I'm not sure how often RCB will be able to get past that weakness of this.
You're quite right, Rahul. I'll now come down to the auction day. RCB gave us a lot of fodder for discussion, even comedy at times, in fact, during the auction and the releases that came in. Chris Morris, who was their best bowler of last year, being released for 10 crores. presumably for trying to get Mitchell Stark back, which never, I mean, he never registered, so that never looked like happening. And in their attempt to buy him back, they ended up looking stupid because they actually went out by the time the bid hit 10 crores. So Jack, I'll come to you. What do you think of that auction? I mean, how do you rate that auction for RCB?
This is a really tricky one because the results aren't awful. The thought process or what they were doing when they released Morris in the first place, that's a 1 out of 10 decision. That's really stupid thinking because he wasn't on a big contract. They were. I mean, like you said, I think they were probably under the impression that Mitchell Stark was going to be available. If I were them, I'd have done a little bit of due diligence, maybe with Mitchell Stark's agent. I mean, like this information wouldn't have been a secret that he wasn't going to register for the auction pool. So I'd have probably done that, and then I'd have kept Chris Morris. But that blunder aside, I don't think that picking up Glenn Maxwell and Kyle Jamieson and I think they got Kane Richardson as well, didn't they? I don't think that's a trio of bad players, and Dan Christian is on top of that is a guy who can fulfill a role. What I found sort of most funny about the RCB auction saga, if you like, because it was a bit like a saga. I mean, they were the main talking point from the auction, was that they decided to release some videos about how much of a master plan the whole Chris Morris release and I think they were suggesting that maybe they were just bidding up the price so that someone else would have to pay too much, which I don't think it was true because they ducked out at exactly the amount of money that they just when it tipped over to the amount of money they had been spending on him, and it would have been really embarrassing. And then secondly, they released a video of Mike Hesson talking about Steve Smith and how they would bid on him, even though they didn't want him, to try and get someone else to come in and buy him. Now, in hindsight, that looks, again, this is results-wise, looks like a great plan. But thought process-wise, that's a 1 out of 10 thing to do. The last thing you want to do if you're Royal Challengers Bangalore and you have identified that you need an overseas pace bowler and you need a middle order hitter is bid on a guy who's neither of those things for 2 crore and then just hope for the best that somebody else will come along and double down on your mistake. So, to sort of go back to your question, in terms of decisions, we're talking they made the worst decisions maybe of all the franchises, but they're Royal Challengers Bangalore, so they've got a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 result probably from the whole process. Weird.
Yasir, I'll come to you. The grand plan they had of releasing all those videos of their strategies in auctions after it was conducted, of releasing Chris Morris and all, we all saw what happened in the auction. What's your reaction to their to RCB and the 2021 IPL auction?
I would love to look at or get a grab of all the videos that were not released. Because I would love to know that. And I would love to have been on the call which Virat would have made to the team management once the auction was done. And these are 2 things I would love to know. Anyways, the one thing RCB had to not do was to just not release Chris Morris. And that is the thing that they did. Of all, the one thing that they got right was having Chris Morris last time. Yes, he was injured, but they had to ensure that he is with them. And he did give them an excellent performance. I mean, I think he had a economy rate of 7 runs per over in the death ball as a death bowler. So why did you? I think this just shows you that thought process is fuzzy, and there is lack of clarity in what they are trying to do, and that will reflect in the squad as well. The one thing that I have to say is that they have a lot of bowling options this time around. In the first 11, I think they can have 6 to 7 bowling options, which includes Maxwell and Christian and others. So possibly they can spread their bowlers, but I'm not sure how well the captain and the management will use them.
True. Rahul, being an RCB fan, you must have felt like a jilted lover after the auction. What is your reaction to the purchases that RCB made during the auction? Because I think none of us here could ever get to understand what they were trying to do.
Okay, I mean, the reason I think Hessen said that the reason they let Morris go was because of his fitness. Last season he missed, I think I don't remember how many, but I think the first 4 to 6 games. And he was on, I think 5 to 7 crores. I don't remember exactly. So, I mean, in hindsight, it looks bad because Morris is fit now, but he also hasn't played any cricket since the last IPL. So, I mean, it would be nice to have Morris, but you can also see the thinking. If supposing he gets injured, misses half the season, where does that leave RCB? If you don't have a replacement. I mean, last season they were left with Dale Steyn, who was past it and got hit the first few games. So you can see why they let him go, but the way the auction turned out and the fact that they bid up to 10 crores, yeah, that part doesn't add up for me. As for the auction videos, they did the same last season as well. And I feel that if you're going to post videos of the times that you do get bargains, then you probably have to post videos when you don't. That said, I don't think RCB management see the Jamieson purchase and the Maxwell purchase as failures. So from their point of view, they're probably happy that they got them. So which explains why they put the videos out. But yeah, I mean the Steve Smith bid didn't make any sense. I'm so grateful they dodged the bullet there. Like where's the need for Steve Smith in when that doesn't make sense. If we got Smith instead of a Christian, it would have been a much worse outcome.
Absolutely right, Rahul. I mean, RCB's auction was like a pig's breakfast. It is just too confusing for anybody to make sense. So I'll come down to the two purchases that probably got everybody talking. The collective sum of 29.25 crore was spent on two players of an auction purse of around 37.5 crores, which were Kyle Jamieson and Glenn Maxwell. Jamieson was coming in on the base of admittedly good test match form, but did not really have numbers behind him in the T20 circuit. Glenn Maxwell was coming into this auction after a good series against India in Australian colours, and a torrid IPL where he didn't fail to score even get a single six. Where do you think? I mean, is this money justified to spend on them, or is it like they've just taken a dollop of money and then they've just thrown it into a toilet? Jack, what do you think?
It's an interesting one. I think the context of this has to be, you have to bear that in mind. This was a mini auction. A lot of the teams wanted certain skills, and that meant that those skills were pricier than they would be at a mega auction. And particularly the two skills that the RCB have paid a lot for are an overseas pace bowler who can bat as well in Kyle Jamieson, and on paper the best middle order hitter probably. Well, maybe not in the world, but he's in the bracket of 5 or 10 on paper elite level middle order hitters. And so I don't think you can necessarily criticize them for that. If they've got the money and they want to spend it somewhere, I mean, Glenn Maxwell, I think, is an improvement on whoever they were playing last year. And I think, Kyle Jamieson's probably a downgrade on Chris Morris, and he doesn't really solve their death bowling the problems. But he does have skills. I think he will take wickets, and I think you can bat him at 8. And looking at what he's done at like Auckland or whatever, I think it's Auckland. His I don't know what they're called, like club in New Zealand. He's been pretty good with the bat, pretty explosive with the bat down the order, and he picks up wickets at a fairly expensive rate, but with a really good strike rate. I checked this just before the show. I think it's about 13 balls per wicket, which is good. That compares at a lower level. I will caveat that with this happened at a lower level, but that compares with about what Rabada does. His numbers compare or very, very similarly in terms of economy rate and strike rate with Rabada. If he is 10% worse in the IPL, he will still be valuable as a bowler who can bowl in the power play. They're going to struggle, I think, at the death, unless they come up with a miracle solution. But like 29 crore, is it well spent? People have spent better money, but in the context of that mini auction, I don't hate it personally.
Yasir, I'll come to you. RCB's greatest manakia over the years has been they've never had a death bowler. They had that one death bowler in Mitchell Stark for 2 seasons. Didn't turn up after 2016, and since then they've always been in the. I mean, they've always begged for mercy in the death overs. I mean, last year they had one in Chris Morris. They let him go. What do you think? I mean, who is their death bowler, and how do you justify this 14.25 crore on Glenn Maxwell, who didn't score a 6, is probably, and like we were discussing before the stream started, is IPL's greatest money laundering scheme alongside Jaidev Unadkat. How do you justify the 14.25 crore on Glenn Maxwell and 15 crore on Kyle Jamieson?
So, like I said right in the beginning, right? It sometimes the expectations or your desire or your desperation can push you to take such decisions. I mean, so okay, I do agree that RCB does have a middle order issue. They did have a middle order issue last time around. They tried to address it, and if Maxwell comes good, and if let's say if Maxwell comes good, then they will have a fantastic season. So there's no denying that. So I think they have gone with that thought process and gone ahead with Maxwell. Because it's a mini auction, we know there are certain 2 issues with the RCB team. They couldn't possibly solve all of them. So they have decided that, okay, at least let me get a good middle order option who gives you a very high upside. And then forget about death bowling. I think they have conceded to the fact that they will not have death bowling till the entire auction process starts from zero. So they're just trying to not look at the weakness. However, having said that, Morris should have not. I mean, they shouldn't have let go of Morris, whatever be the logic. But yeah, I mean, they'll struggle with their death bowling. Navdeep Saini showed some promise last time around. Maybe Siraj will definitely not bowl in the last 4 overs, 5 overs.
True.
Maybe Jamieson will get a couple of overs. I'm not sure, but they are going to struggle, and I really don't know how they'll structure the last 5-6 overs.
I think you've made a good point there, Yasir. Rahul, I'll come to you. Glenn Maxwell, I mean, he's, except for that one glorious half season he had with the Kings 11 Punjab in the UAE in 2014, he's been constantly been given diminishing returns in the IPL. Yet he's been taking a truckload of money back home to Melbourne with him. Do you think 14.25 crores with on somebody whose returns in the IPL have been on the basement level grades, does it make sense?
I mean, it's tough to evaluate Maxwell because we all know what he can do, but he's just not been doing it in the IPL. And you mentioned that half season, wasn't even a half season. It was, I think, 3 or 4 games in UAE, and then I vaguely remember one good knock in India. I think that was it. So yeah, it doesn't look good. But if you look at the way RCB squad is structured, they have 22 players, 11 are paid 20 lakh. So it's really lopsided. But it's also allowed them to spend big on, the couple of players that they really want, which is what they did. And in theory, Maxwell does solve the middle order problem. If you have Kohli opening, then say Maxwell at 3 to provide that extra impetus in over 7 to 15, which is where RCB really struggled last season. It's probably why they lost the last few games when they were batting first. So from that point of view, he does solve. Now, of course, if he doesn't perform, then that RCB's playoffs hopes are pretty much gone because they don't really have any other um, direct alternative. They'll have to rework the entire strategy. As for Jamieson, it was puzzling, but a lot of pacers did go for high prices in this auction, and um, I think he offers something different in the side. I don't know if he is will be a reliable death bowler, and like I said earlier, that is RCB's worry. But I've seen worse auctions from RCB in previous years. Under Daniel Vettori, it was just 2017, 2018, 2019 is just horrific. So, from that point of view, you can see what Hessen is trying to do under the constraints of a mini auction, and he's also assembled a lot of good young Indian talent. So, yeah, it's more promising than before. It's a low bar, but that's the life of an RCB fan.
I think there's one comment about Maxwell that sums him up really well from Manjunath Venkateshwaran. Maxwell is like a penny stock in Wolf of Wall Street. I think nobody has described Glenn Maxwell better than this tweet over here. We've got another question from Surya Sesha. After 10 games last year, it was as if they went back in time using a time machine and came face to face with the demons of their past. I mean, I think it's quite a interesting comment that he's made, because I think they looked impregnable in their first 10 games, and suddenly they decided to face all their horrors once again and just go kaput. There's a question from Surya Sesha again, and this one is towards you, Jack. Morris at 10 crore being released for Jamieson 15. What do you make of that trade-off? And does this trade-off make sense for you?
No, it doesn't. It's really stupid, isn't it, on paper? But if you look at it, if you detach the monetary value from those two players for a second and just look at them side by side, we all agree here that Chris Morris is a better death bowler. I think all data will show that as well. They're probably similar-ish hitters. Jamieson might be a little bit better in the power play. So I don't know if it's like a colossal downgrade. Bear in mind as well that you're more likely to get 14 or 16 matches out of Jamieson than you are Morris. I don't think Morris has managed a full IPL for about 6 seasons. So there's that comes into it as well. I mean, like, look, would I if I got to choose between those two, if I was building an 11 and someone offered me that as my first pick, I'm definitely taking Chris Morris. I think his skill set in T20 is rarer and more valuable. But I don't hate Kyle Jamieson either. I hope that makes sense.
I think Surya would probably agree with you. In fact, we've got a very humorous quip from Pratyush about Stark and RCB. Better love story than Twilight. I think yes. Well done. There's another interesting quip from Pratyush over here. Thor will bring luck for RCB, and he's talking about Dan Christian, and which brings us to a very good question from Piyush Zavare, who says, I feel Dan Christian will come out as a better player, a bigger player than Glenn Maxwell by the time the IPL ends, which brings us to the Dan Christian question. RCB spent 4.8 crore after not having relaxed, spending the 29 crores on Maxwell and Jamieson. They spent another 4.8 crores, this time probably a little too high, but on somebody who's a proven winner in this format in Dan Christian. Jack, I come to you. How do you think about this Dan Christian purchase for RCB, and do you think how big is it for critical is it for them in this season?
Maybe they bought him to try and turn their luck around, because he's on quite an incredible streak, isn't he? Of T20 tournament wins. Again, I think he's a good overseas role player. I think he can strike well at the death. I think he can come in and potentially bowl you some death overs if Kyle Jamieson really doesn't work out or gets an injury. I don't expect to see too much of him, to be honest. I think things will probably have gone wrong somewhere if we see a lot of Dan Christian. But I think, to have him around is useful.
Yasir, I'll come to you now. Dan Christian is a serial winner in this format. Wherever he's gone, he's taken trophies just like it's a hobby for him. How big is it for an RCB team that seriously lacks trophy winners in that sense. How big is his purchase for a team that is looking for a trophy like RCB is?
Okay, so I personally feel that Dan Christian is sort of a value purchase who in the sense that, and considering his age and the experience, it's not a very forward-looking purchase anyways, but it's more for the present. And I think the feeling within the RCB camp is that there is no future per se. They have to win it now. And yes, they have been thinking about it for the past couple of years that this they have to do it right now, because you see, I mean, AB de Villiers is not getting younger, so it's a value purchase. And my intuition says that I think Dan Christian will contribute a lot, will play some role which may not, the stats may not show it, in the sense that it could be a 15 ball 25 or 2 overs for in the middle somewhere, but he'll play a big role in how RCB's game pans out in this season.
The other thing I'd add, if I can quickly, is that in sport in general, lots of people talk about the culture of a team. And building like a winning culture, or building a positive culture. Having a guy who's been there and done it, is experienced, is well known. All the players will know who Dan Christian is. He can be a bit of a role model, even if it's sort of in a bit of an off-pitch capacity. That kind of purchase can be really valuable in changing a side's culture. And RCB, if we're being honest, probably do need to look at their team culture and probably do need to get rid of some of the baggage from the past. So I think there's an element of that probably involved. I would like to think there's an element of that involved in picking up Dan Christian as well.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, sure.
Just one point on Maxwell. I feel that Maxwell is a very temperamental player. And in the sense that he has talked about his mental health issues and the fact that if he finds his calling, if he feels, if the team really takes care of him, the management, Virat and AB de Villiers and all, then I have a feeling that he will do really well. But if he feels that he's not part of the core thought process, or he feels left out, I think then he'll not do very well. So it's not something that it's not very tangible. I mean, it's intuition, but I just feel that to be true for Maxwell.
Absolutely. I think it's a very, very important point you've made there, Yasir. Now I'll come to you, Rahul, about Dan Christian's purchase, because there's also a point from Dipanshu Agarwal. Dan Christian could very well be part of the starting 11 and can play the role that Shivam Dubey was expected to play for the last 2 years. What do you think? I mean, how important is the Dan Christian purchase for RCB?
I mean, Christian is a more reliable bowler than Dubey, and it will probably be trusted more by RCB with the bat as well. And what his purchase is, even if he plays, will reduce the pressure on AB to be there at the end, which which just adds more clarity for RCB. If they have a deeper batting order with finishers they trust, then the top order can also bat more freely and not have to anchor all the way till the last 3-4 overs. So it is a smart purchase. I mean, if you look at the RCB squad, it's only 3 players have been there for a considerable while, which is Kohli, AB, and Chahal.
Yes.
But yes, it is still young. There are a lot of young inexperienced players, and he'll help add that. He has that winning know-how and probably be able to help guide the likes of Saini, Siraj as well. Even Jamieson, because Jamieson is also relatively new on the block. So
yes,
it's a good purchase. One of those probably overlooked ones, but I do feel he will play a fair number of games.
Absolutely. I think there's a comment from Shanmugraj Muthuviran which has come in, and he agrees with Jack's assessment of Glenn Maxwell. He says Glenn Maxwell is like a Rolls Royce, can run purely on reputation. And there's a very witty rejoinder to that from Manjunath Venkateshwaran again. Rolls Royce goes on most days and Phantom on some, which I think kind of sums up Glenn Maxwell in the IPL.
Yeah, if I could add one thing on Maxwell, I mean, I don't think he doesn't need to play those 95 or 80, 89, 90 knocks that he did for Punjab in 2014. All he has to do is ensure that RCB don't slaughter in the middle overs, and even if he can come, like a good 30, 35 cameos, that is more than RCB could ask for. So I think it will help him that he's not expected to hit, be there, has deliver match-winning knocks every game with the likes of AB and Kohli around. So,
True.
and like Stark's Reality mentioned in the comments that they're all friends. Maxwell spoke about
Yes.
wanting to
Absolutely.
play with both of them before the auction, and then he got his wish. But
it's still
yeah,
a gamble. I think he's definitely said that Maxwell's idol is ABD, and Virat and him are friends too. That might allow him to bat freely, but it's still a gamble. Okay, so we've had quite a big discussion on this on the auctions part. I'll now come to the part that will probably start triggering a lot of people, especially the RCB fan base over. Uh, Virat Kohli, the batsman, I think is RCB's greatest strength. But is Virat Kohli, the captain, the greatest kryptonite that RCB have? Jack, I'll come to you about on this.
Oh, I would disagree that he's their greatest strength. To begin with, I think AB de Villiers is a better T20 player. Kohli is good. I mean, let's. That's not what I'm saying. I think just from the point of view of who are the real key players for Royal Challengers Bangalore, I think de Villiers with the bat, and I think Chahal might be more important for their IPL overall than Kohli as well. Kohli is the best of the kind of anchor type batsmen in the world, and the thing with anchor type batters is that they're, especially in the IPL, probably the least important players in your batting lineup. So it's very hard for them to be, the key man in a sense. On the captaincy point, I actually don't really have a problem with Virat Kohli's captaincy. I think, maybe you can criticize it for being slightly over emotional sometimes. I mean, we all know what he's thinking all of the time, and that juxtaposes against someone like Owen Morgan quite harshly. But I think you can have success by being that emotional guy. Probably what I would say, though, is that he does need to perform himself for that emotional style of captaincy to come across well with the other players. Otherwise, it looks a little bit petulant. But yeah, so I would say, Virat Kohli is probably, both in terms of captaincy and batting, a little bit lower down the list of what will make or break RCB's IPL season than the narrative, if you like, suggests.
I think it's a very interesting point there, Jack. Yasir, I'll come to you. Gautam Gambhir last year on a show, I mean, not mincing his words. I mean, he of course has probably has a bone to pick with Kohli. We all know why, but he did say that no IPL captain in the IPL has been luckier than Virat Kohli, and to have stayed in the job despite not delivering a title for them. Do you think, as a captain, Kohli actually deserves the captaincy of RCB, or is he feeling the side as a captain, or is this side failing him, or there's a mutual correlation of failure between the two parties here?
Okay, so I'll take words from what Gambhir has said in the past as well, and Gambhir has in the past, a captain is as good as his team. So
True.
So if he has said that, and if he's consistent in his thought process, then we'll have to accept that the RCB team has certain structural flaws. This is not a MI team, Mumbai Indians team, which is very strong throughout. And so there are certain structural flaws. Whether Kohli, the captain, is responsible for that to some extent, yes. But even the management and the think tank is also equally responsible for that. Having said that, personally, I feel Kohli is a far better Test long format captain than the white ball short format captain. But I don't think he's as bad. And just because a trophy, he has not won a trophy in the IPL setup does not imply that he's not a good captain. I mean, he's not the best, but he's not as bad as people assume him to be. That's one point. And the other thing is that as a batsman, I would say that Kohli has to accept that he has to play the anchor role, and it will help RCB if he plays in that mold, and that requires other players to have a much higher strike rate when they are operating with him. And for him, the mold should be the last T20 international match against England, where he batted throughout, while you had other stroke players hitting their way. And if that happens, then RCB will be in good space.
Absolutely. I think great point there, Yasir. Rahul, I'll come to you because we also have a question from Srinivas Sadanand coming in. If you could also, he's asked if you could appoint someone else as the captain that isn't a Virat Kohli, who do you go for? And I'll take your question, take this point forward as well, and ask you that Virat Kohli announced that he will be opening in this IPL. So, how big an impact do you think Kohli, the opener, will have for RCB? And to also answer Srinivas's question, if there was ever a choice given that Virat Kohli is not the captain for RCB, who in this side would probably make for a better captain?
Okay, I mean, if you look at the RCB squad now, from a captaincy point of view, it's either him or AB de Villiers. And if you're going to make AB keep a few games, then it's not an option to give him captaincy as well. And with the way RCB is set up, there's really no question. He's being paid 17 crores, so like there is really no reason why RCB will let him go, as he's the face of the. But going on to as an opener, yeah, 2016 was like we all know Kohli was at his peak, 973 runs. Single-handedly won them about 5-6 games with big knocks, 400s. That season is probably the best Kohli has. That year actually is the best Kohli has batted all career. And returning to opening means that he gets to bat from the start, so he can actually anchor. Last season, Finch used to get out early, and he's coming in early anyways. So managed to bat from the start. I think it's a good move. I'm not sure whether announcing it 3 weeks before the season was a good move. I don't know why. Might as well keep that element of surprise, but that's Kohli. And coming down to like the point of what trophies, like I think it's just unfair to measure him on trophies alone.
Trophy,
I mean,
yes.
If he was lucky, he would have had a fit Mitchell Starc in 2016, and if they did, they would have won that final. I have no doubt. Over like Chris Jordan and Shane Watson gave about 90 to 100 runs on their own in the final. Starc wouldn't have. Yeah, so I think he's been quite unlucky, and like Yasir mentioned about the support staff, Daniel Vettori as coach wasn't really doing anything, and I think it's just the brilliance of the likes of Gale, AB Kohli that overshadowed Vettori's. I don't think he was as capable, and likes of Ashish Nehra as a bowling coach. One game he suggested he's like told Kohli bowl Pawan Negi to Hardik Pandya.
Of all people.
Yeah, and then he got hit for I think 30 runs. Yeah, that is terrible. So if you have such coaches not really helping, and Kohli is someone who needs, I think, some good clarity externally to help him as a captain. And if the coaches themselves are not providing that insight, then as we've seen, RCB really struggled. So last season his captaincy did improve. So it's less of a concern than it used to be.
Absolutely. I think Piyush Savare has given us a prediction. RCB will win a title in Kohli's final year as a skipper and player, and Rahul Dravid as a coach. I mean, very interesting prediction. I think we'll hold you to your word on this. Surya Sesha has given us a couple of stats. In the IPL, Kohli as an opener has a strike rate of over 140. And without as a non-opening batsman, it's in the mid 120s. But because there's a similar average on both fronts, so I think he's saying opening is the way to go, and I think there's no debates about that. Shanmugraj Muthuviran, I think he's not put a finer point than that. If you could release the likes of KL, Gale, Kohli, Watson, QDK, Mayank Agarwal, and all. It is for certain that they have certain structural issues. All they care about is who reaches the 100 million mark first with their Puma branding. I mean, very very interesting point over there. So I come down to the question of the playing 11s that you guys have in mind. And what strategies do you have in mind when you are selecting a particular player for a particular position? Jack, I'll start off with you.
So I think, not to dodge the question, but I think you probably want to avoid, if you're RCB this year, having a best 11 in mind. Maybe with batting, you can do that, and that would include probably Padakal and Kohli opening. And then I don't know that much about him, but lots of people have been saying Azharuddin is very good, so maybe slot him at 3. Then you've got 4 and 5 de Villiers and Maxwell. Something like that. Or obviously Washington Sundar could maybe be number 3 as well as your kind of backup opener, I think. So you might want to be a little bit more fixed there. But if you look at the bowling, I think they need to be quite flexible depending on where they play. So they kick off the tournament, don't they, at the Chepauk Stadium. I think their first 3 matches are there. There they might want to consider, I mean, it's rather obvious, but you probably want to stack a few more spinners in your team there. And possibly go down the route, at least for one of those matches, of using someone like Chahal to plug some of those death overs. Then when you move on to Kolkata, I think they've got games at the Wankhede Stadium as well in Mumbai. That's where I expect you'll see the best of Kyle Jamieson. If they were really brave, I think they could possibly not pick Jamieson for the first 3 matches. Now they've spent so much money on him, I think they'll be a bit nervous about that decision. But looking at their bowling unit as, say, the 7 or 8 guys that could deliver overs for them through the tournament, maybe that is what I would do if I had full control over this team. I don't, and there's a lot to consider. Spending 1.6 or 16 crore, or however much it was, on Jamieson is a potential spanner in the works in terms of playing your best 11 in each game. But I think they've got the personnel to chop and change, and not all teams do. So I'd really like to see them take a risk there.
Because there's a pointer from Sesha again. He said that Jamieson will be useful in extracting bounce at Wankhede courtesy his height. Not very sure about Chepauk though. Him at Chepauk though. He said he'll pick Kane Richardson instead, which is a very very interesting point over there. So then apparently with the news that Devdutt Patikal has just recovered from COVID, he's again Sesha once again has said, do not rush Patikal back after COVID. Wait for a couple of games. I mean, health-wise, they should try and go for that. Yasir, I'll come to you now. What's your RCB playing 11, and what's the strategy and rationale you have in mind behind your starting 11 for every player in that starting 11?
Okay, so we know that RCB does not really have great death bowling. So the other option that they have is to have options available in their bowling so that they can play multiple roles. For instance, Dan Christian or Maxwell. So that's why to have bowling options would be one of the key ways the team would be structured. But broadly, if to look at it, it would be Virat Kohli and Devdutt Patikal opening. I think everybody knows that. One thing that I have, and it's a tactical punt, is that Washington Sundar is a very good batsman. We know that. But he's not the kind of batsman who will give you 10 ball 20 runs when coming down the order. So if you want to use him optimally, it can only be at top of the order at number 3 possibly. And so that's one tactical punt. Then I have Glenn Maxwell, AB de Villiers, Dan Christian, Azharuddin would be the core, the middle order core. I agree with Jack. Jamieson should ideally not be part of your first 3 games at Chepauk. But then there is a resource curse here because they have spent so much, they will play him. And my issue is that if he does not do well in the first 3 games, they will not play him where they have to play him, which is at Wankhede. So that's my challenge. Then you have Siraj, Saini, Chahal. So basically, that's my playing 11. And it's not fixed; it's fluid. You may have Daniel Sams initially at. If I mean, he's not fit, he may not be fit. But if he was, then maybe have Sams in the playing 11. He can bowl some off cutters in Chennai. That may be helpful. So that's broadly the team.
I think you. I think that, good point made there yeah, by Yasir and Jack Hope. I think Simon Dool once said, I think somewhere that teams. He said it about Kings 11 Punjab that they were playing their most expensive 11, not necessarily their best 11. I think the same might apply for RCB this time around, considering that they with the Kyle Jamieson purchase. Rahul, I'll come to you now about your RCB starting 11 and why do you have what strategy do you have in mind for every player who's being slotted at a particular position?
So for me, the strength, as with last season, is that they have assembled a squad um, that they can use well. Use more players in terms of matchups, tactically, and that probably benefits them given that there's no home ground, so they're playing across different grounds. Um, in Chennai, I would like to see them play Shahbaz Ahmed. I think he did well last season. He only got 2 games, but he did well. And in the practice games, day before or yesterday, he hit 95 with the bat, which was quite surprising. But uh, um, they sent him opening. I don't think he'll open here, but I think he'll offer slow left arm spin in addition to Chahal's leg spin, and Sundar, as well as Maxwell can pitch in with off spin. So that's some variety. In given that particle starts obviously in a first choice team, but considering he just recovered, um, I would go with Rajat Patidar opening with or Azharuddin. So one of them slots in the middle order, one opens, because Patidar has done quite well in the practice games as well, and he was opening, so he has 100 and a 50, which is
True,
indicative indicative that he's gone ahead of the other Indian options in the squad. So
true.
there'll be Kohli, Maxwell at three, AB. Wait, let me just have a look. And then Azharuddin, Sundar, Christian, Jamieson, Siraj, Saini, Chahal. But yeah, for me it's quite flexible. I don't know actually if Jamieson will start considering quarantine just finished, and I don't think they will rush him in to his first game in India. So that's in the air. Aside from that, I think they do have options. They have in Harshal Patel. Um,
Mhm.
they do have options. Indian batting for me. Two players from Patidar, Azharuddin, Baby, and there's one more name. Prabhu Desai, who's also been quite impressive in Syed Mushtaq Ali. He can play 360 shots. So they do have options. So that's a positive. That's a
Uh,
positive for me. What they may lack. Like say a strong death bowling option. They do have variety, and that should benefit them if they use them the right way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's Piyush Zavare who's contributed his first 11 for RCB. He's gone with Kohli, Devdutt Padikkal, ABD, Maxwell, Dan Christian, Azharuddin, Washington Sundar at 7. He's taken a punt between one of Kyle Jamieson and Kane Richardson, Chahal Saini, Chahal Mohammed Siraj, and he's gone for Harshal Patel instead of Navdeep Saini, which is a very interesting idea. I mean, he's taken a very interesting punt. Surya Sesha has, for the first game, he said Kohli, Rajat Patidar, ABD, Maxwell, Azharuddin, Dan Christian, Washington Sundar, Kane Richardson, Navdeep Saini. He's chosen between one of Mohammad Siraj or Shahbaz Ahmed, the left arm spin bowling all rounder of Bengal, and Yuzvendra Chahal. Jamieson will play ahead of Richo. He's definitely referring to Kane Richardson. Although I'd pick the latter at Chennai, which is very interesting. Pranav RS, he asked Jamieson or Richardson who starts. I think everyone has said that price tag wise, I think they'll have to start with Kyle Jamieson over there. I mean, So I think that's one. And they've also, there's another name that they have in Pawan Deshpande, I think, who's another one of the good performers for Karnataka in the Syed Mushtaq Ali. So they do have options, and they've got Daniel, and Suresesha said Daniel Sams would have been a great asset at Chepauk, but of course with his COVID diagnosis, I think he's going to be out of commission for a bit of time. There's a very interesting question coming in here from Uditi Singh. She said this is coming from a very casual fan, so forgive me for not knowing much. It's all right, always. But has RCB done more success when they play it safe, or is it the opposite? And what do you think they should be doing this season? Jack, I'll come to you for this. I mean, it's a very interesting question.
I don't know if I can comment exactly on RCB with reference to playing it safe, but I think in T20 cricket in general, teams that play it safe tend to do worse. You can think from this is for a casual fan. This is I'm going to make this a little bit more complex than maybe you'd love, but you can think about T20 cricket in a way that's probably a little bit more similar to like basketball than Test cricket, in that each team have got an equal number of opportunities, 120 balls, to basically maximize their efficiency in terms of run scoring. And the way to do that fundamentally is to try and hit as many sixes and as many fours as possible. Mathematically, that's where the conclusion is. So that's the game plan you should have. T20 teams that sort of think, oh, if we just put 150 up, like at least that'll be a target to bowl at, are depriving themselves of the opportunity to win the game with the bat in hand. And that, I think, is probably why you see such a toss bias as well in cricket, because the team that bats first, they don't score par for the wicket. They think to themselves, let's play it safe and put a decent score on the board so we've got a chance with the ball. When in actual fact, they should think both teams have got 120 chances here. Sixes and fours are the most efficient way to score. That's what we should be trying to do. And every now and then we're gonna be bowled out for 80, but we will regularly score 170, 180 or more.
Absolutely. I think Yasir, I'll take this question to you now. I mean, what response do you have in mind to Uditi's question? Because it's a very interesting question that she's posed.
I'm possibly extending what Jack has said. To some extent, T20 cricket is almost like a very different sport compared to Test match, right? And even one day, I mean, one day could be a mix of both, but it's very different in the sense that T20 is about you. For instance, one run actually is a loss in a T20. True. It is a loss. You have actually given the benefit to the bowling team. And so the minimum is 2, right? And so the thought process has to be 6, 4, 3 or 2 rather than 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're thinking in that manner, then you will realize that T20 cricket requires a batsman to not put a price on his wicket, not to put on that shoes of a typical batsman when you preserve the wicket, and to start playing aggressively right from the go. And therefore, that is how it should be, and that is how T20 cricket will, I think, eventually evolve into.
Absolutely. I think, Rahul, what's your take on this? And because there's also a question that's coming from Suresesha later, where he's asking, where do Adam Zampa and Finn Allen fit into the scheme of things? Zampa reaches on the 10th, and by the time he's out of quarantine, he'll get only a game in Chennai. Both seem surplus to requirements. So I'll pose Uditi's question to you, and also have you take this pointer from Surya.
I mean, to make a joke, RCB have had little success in general, but if I feel like it's just last season when Kohli just struggled, batting first, they're just struggling to gauge what a good total will be, and the fact that Finch struggled put a big dent in their plans, because it meant that the responsibility of run scoring comes down to Kohli and AB. But in past seasons, it was actually the opposite. That when they had the good seasons between 2011 and 2016, it was on the back of big scores big runs, from Gale, Kohli, AB. Throughout, 2011, Gale, 2011, 2012, Gale was, I think, Orange Cap winner in both years. So that was the strategy that worked well for RCB. And it's, I think this year, if on paper, it's something that they can replicate with the players they have. I think Kohli and AB don't have to put that big a price on the wicket as they were last season. And that should in turn lead to higher scores batting first, which is the main problem. Like RCB lost their last 5 games last season. They lost the toss, so firstly Kohli has to win the toss, and then he losing the toss, batting first. It is the same. It is getting tiring to watch in the same story every game. Batting first, you know how this is going to go. So
True. True.
as for
And-
Surya's question, I think it's unfortunate for Zampa that I think it's sad for him. I think his wedding got cancelled, so the reason he's coming late is also like it didn't happen, and he's going to miss the games that he would be used for. He bowled well in the eliminator against Hyderabad, so I think he would have gotten games in Chepauk. So it's tough to see him playing much this season. As for Finn Allen, similarly, last season the only reason Philippe got games is because Finch failed. But now that they have better Indian options in the middle order, they really should not be using an overseas spot on a batsman. They need to be using it on bowlers and all-rounders.
Absolutely. I think very interesting responses to that. Surya Sesha's chipped in. Kohli is winning most tosses this time. His pattern is feast or famine. With the famine against England, he's going to feast in this time. I think very interesting take. So we'll come down to the predictions. I mean, Jack, where do you think RCB will finish up this year?
I think they will make the playoffs, but I think similar to last year, they're a team with some pretty big flaws, despite some pretty high highs as well. And I think when they run into the slightly better organised teams, particularly here thinking Mumbai, I just don't really see how this team can regularly beat that sort of side. So I reckon they'll lose in the eliminator, something like that.
Yasir, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there are teams which are pretty strong. So I think they'll have a middle table finish. It could be 4, it could be 5. But I really don't see them being in the top 2 for sure. And because death bowling is a critical key to success. And I think they'll struggle with that.
Rahul, what do you think?
I agree with Jack. I think it'll be 3rd or 4th. You can't see them making the final, but I don't think they are that bad to not make the playoffs. Most people are discounting RCB, which is fair enough, but I don't think, we look at the players they have. I don't think that, a lot of things have to go wrong. And it's a bit conditional that, if Maxwell does well, then yeah, I think playoffs is guaranteed for sure.
Absolutely. I think Shanmugraj Muthuviran saying Glenn Maxwell to decide their fate. As bizarre as it may sound, but he has to be their X factor this season. Imagine the energy on the field with Maxwell, Kohli, and ABD. I mean, very interesting. Surya Sesha, once again, totally forgot this. Not playing at Chinnaswamy is a big blessing in disguise, which I think a lot of fans will agree. So we are approaching the 1 hour mark, and we'll close out with some very funny quips that came in. I mean, there's Amartya Saha saying Isala Cup Namde. I think everyone says that doesn't look like happening. Pavit Singh saying Maxwell is literally Lakshmi Chit Fund, which I think a lot of people in India will understand. It's a scam, refers to a scam over here.
Ponzi scheme.
It's a Ponzi scheme, absolutely. Then Manjunath Venkateswaran once again saying this Rahul is definitely KL Rahul's long lost cousin. The baritone diction are eerily similar, so I think you've got some connection to. And he is further elaborated. Rahul doing some slight shoulder rehab at RCB's auction strategy. Very very interesting. I mean, so I think, and there are a couple of. There is Manjunath Venkateswaran once again. Abhinav sporting the Bhagat Singh look ala Andy. Okay. Thank you, Manju sir. I mean, appreciate your comments. There is he's coming in with another very humorous quip. Havells, RCB, and MCB. Shock lagai. Havells is a big electricity brand over here, so I think that's the connection. But yeah, I mean, there's some. A lot of, because it's RCB, so a lot of people have decided to take the Mickey on them. Pratyush Singh in Hindi. So वैसे ना एक आलू बिका है ना Adam Zampa. Very interesting one. I mean, some very Maxwell and numbers are like petrol petrol prices in India. It's just getting more and more expensive, which is kind of right. Shalin Shah, there was a question from Shalin Shah which we I think ignored in our we forgot to take up. Is Maxwell at his destructive best when he bats in top 4 in T20 cricket, as his T20 numbers seem to suggest? I mean, Jack, I'll actually take your view on this.
I mean, he probably is, isn't he? But then where do Kohli, de Villiers and Padikal bat, and you have to fit Sundar in as well. I think Glenn Maxwell probably should be a 5 for this team. And I think, I think in theory, having him at 5 should free up Kohli, de Villiers and Padikal to not be as slow as they were, to be honest, in some of the games last year. Like everyone said that the excuse for Kohli's slow batting last year was that RCB didn't bat deep. Maybe that's true. We'll see this year if he's a little bit more explosive. But it's hard. I mean, it's Glenn Maxwell is fantastic, but I don't know whether you compromise Kohli, de Villiers, and Padikal by shoehorning him into the top 4 as well, and then also leaving your middle order a little bit thin.
True, so
absolutely. Sure.
Abhinav, I have a theory to this. I mean, so because Maxwell is like he can give you a very good score, or he can go. It's like boom or bust. Then would you rather have AB de Villiers below him, who has more gears in him, to control the innings in case if Maxwell does well, then yes, AB plays in a certain fashion. If Maxwell does not do well, then AB plays in a certain fashion. So would you have Maxwell come before AB? I mean, tactically, or would you have him afterwards?
I think that's a very interesting pointer there. Piyush Zaware wants to close out with Morris for Jamieson's trade-off. Seems like RCB's management was taking tips from someone who thinks himself to be a financial consultant after watching Scam 92, which is a web series based in India. And I think he's kind of gotten it right. Suresh Esha, though, he says they have a gun fielding side. He's decided to spot one positive out for them. That Virat, ABD, Maxwell, Christian et al. Make for a very, very good fielding side. And I think that's quite right. And with that, I think we will call close to our discussion here about RCB. And and in fact, I mean, we'll close out this one last quip on Maxwell. We are regularly talking about Maxwell the striker, but Maxwell the bowler is hard to ignore. Very clever bowler. I think quite a few of us here do agree that Maxwell with his off spin might just offer them something useful in the middle overs. Yasir, Jack, and Rahul, I'll actually take your views on this. Maxwell, the bowler. I mean, how important would he be for RCB's fortune?
So, I mean, Australia has they have used Maxwell in the power play as well on certain occasions, right? Tactically, maybe bowling to left-hander or all that. So, I mean. So I do expect Maxwell to be used tactically in the power play if it is. Otherwise, he'll give you 2 or 3 overs in the middle for sure.
Because talking about power play, and that's where Crick Vidya has jumped in. Do you think Sundar should bowl in power plays irrespective of whether it's a right-handed opening pair combination? has this matchup thing been taken too far? I'll come to you, Jack, about this.
No, I don't think he should bowl in the power play to right-handed batters, and I think probably the matchup thing hasn't been taken too far. It's not been taken far enough. Is probably the answer to that. Cricket, in terms of analysis and in terms of working out which bowlers to bowl to which batters or which batters to send in which situation, it's really in its infancy compared to most other sports. So on matchups specifically, in a year or two's time, well, it's say in 5 years' time, it will become part of the telecast. It will be really, really clear. The way stats are presented will include breakdowns based on the bowling type that batters face, because this is the future of T20 cricket in particular.
Absolutely. Rahul, I'll come to you about this. I mean, do you think Washington Sundar should be bowling the power plays irrespective of whether it's a right-handed opening pair coming in?
I mean, it probably depends who the right-hander is, but I would like to see him being used more. Generally, I've seen Kohli some games he just doesn't use him at all, and then just there's a big U-turn. So I would like to see him being used more. But it's coming back to Maxwell as well. I think he'll be a good option to just rattle through some overs, maybe save Kohli from getting a overrate ban.
True, absolutely. I think he's Kohli has copped a few criticisms on his overrate before, so I think that may be a good strategy. Shanmugraj Muthuviran with a closing quip, I think, about Yasir. Yasir smiling at Crick Vidya's question is similar to how a kid would get his exam papers leaked a day before the exam. I think that with that very clever quote, I think we'll close out our comment. And there's Pranav RS asking, will you guys be doing match day live as well? Yes, I think we will be coming in post match every day to review the day's action on the field, and please do tune in. I think we'll provide some good quality discussion and some banter to go with it. So with that, I think we will come to an end of our discussion. So thank you, Jack. Thank you, Yasir. Thank you, Rahul. And thank you to everybody who joined in here. I mean, on the live chat, I think you've provided some very interesting questions and discussion points to talk about. And hopefully it's a good season that RCB can try and be positive about and say Sala Cup Namde and carry that slogan forward for the next year. Because I don't think a lot of people here seem confident about their chance, but it is cricket, it's IPL, and strange things always happen in this game. So I think so. Thank you so much, Jack, Yasir, Rahul. It's been a fabulous honor to have you guys here. So follow all of them on their respective social channels, because they're doing some crazy content. Follow the Cricket Podcast, follow Cricket Vidya, follow MTAG TV on YouTube as well, and subscribe to the channel, like it on Facebook, follow it on Instagram, and also on Twitter, and look for them on Google, and because there's some quality content that's coming out from us as well. And thank you so much, guys. I think it's been a fabulous discussion, and hopefully it's a great season for IPL for RCB in this season. So we wish you all good night, and we will be back tomorrow with our final teams preview, which would be the Mumbai Indians. So please stay tuned for that, and hopefully we'll have all of you joining us once again. Thank you so much, guys. Good night.
Bye.